Yes, please do that.
Okay. Okay. So in 2026, Luca, a queer immigrant from Chile based in New York, finds himself talking with an artificially intelligent being resembling the person he was before his gender transition, Lisette. Confused if this is a dream, hallucination, or the final culmination of years of research in artistic exploration on the possibilities of human AI collaboration, he gets absorbed into the world he's listening to. Audio recordings and narrated memories, Lisette randomly selects a few topics to deliver his first words to Luca. She reads a fragment of the book Americana by Nigerian author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and she speaks about political resistance in the Trump era. Luca, impressed by the accuracy of Lisette's speech, responds to what he's listening to, overwhelmed by her presence. If you want to explain, Sami, a little bit the visual aspects of Song 1.
Yes, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anybody else knocking at the door.
Okay.
I didn't anticipate having to control both of these things at the same time. Anyway, yes, so we materialize and we see big 3D letters that are metallic that say Metamorphis, and in the background there are 2 point clouds. One is sort of yellowish and one is sort of blue-greenish, and they're off in the distance and the background is black. And they're each rotating very slowly, and they're these sort of flourishes of points in space. And up close to us, we have 2 interlaced versions of the Penrose triangle, which is basically a 3D wavy triangular shape. And it's the Penrose triangle is an impossible geometry, but Luca has made these possible, which has some conceptual implications that I think he'd like to get into.
Yeah, well, the Penrose triangle is something that intrigues me for my whole life, and represents, in terms of, philosophy and mathematics, impossibility. It's a shape that you can draw, 2D drawing, you can see it in a 3D perspective, but it doesn't exist. It's impossibility in its purest form. And I made an adaptation of the Penrose triangle to express visually possibility, and the possibility that 2 versions of the same human being interact within a virtual space. In this case, Lisette and Luca. So if we start moving slowly to the second or the next zone within the space, you will find a sign that says press 0 if you want to return to the origin. In these 3D spaces, it's easy to get lost. So I'm assuming people will want to explore the space and probably go outer, the visual thing that you see. So if you do that, you will probably find the sign and also a sound saying, with my voice saying, press 0 to return to the origin. So as soon as you get to the second area or second zone, viewers will find Luca and Lisette having a conversation. Luca represents me and Lisette is a 20-year-old version of me in the form of an artificial intelligence. Within the story, I finished it creating back in 2026. Technically, this presented a challenge because to create a 3D model of me, I can simply 3D scan myself, but I can go through the same process to create her for obvious reasons, because she physically does not exist anymore. So to make this idea possible, first I did a professional full body 3D scan of myself at New York City Cap 3D. And then I created a clone of Luca's mesh and replaced the body for a female body. Then I removed the beard and I made a few changes in the face to resemble the way I looked when I was in my 20-somethings. Important to mention that beard removal wasn't enough due to the process of hormone replacement therapy and fat redistribution, which means that even if I shave, my face isn't structurally the same as it was before my medical transition. Then after having the two models ready, I pose them seated in a way that will feel intimate, as two friends having a conversation. At some point, I thought, what would be another way to represent this visually? How will humans will interact with artificial intelligence in the future, probably through a screen? But I wanted to make this thing more intimate, and this first approach to artificial intelligence that I'm having, I want to represent this visually more intimate and give it some humanity. Another element here is the audio. You can hear as soon as you're walking through a heartbeat, but it's actually a mix of two heartbeats synchronized. One is lower than the other one, and are the heartbeats of the two characters interacting for the first time. So then if you move Sammy to Lisette's, so
as we approach these figures, in the distance, they seem sort of like solid colors. And Lisette has her leg crossed and she looks sort of like she's speaking. And as you get closer to them, you can see they're actually just clouds of points. And as you get into them, they grow more and more abstract.
I decided to use point clouds to represent this abstraction visually. I wanted the both characters to be within the same sort of womb, that is contained in them, and kind of the same matter within the same environment. So yeah, so after the visual challenges, I also had a narrative challenge. How do I make her interact with Luca? What do I want her to say and how? So I have a couple of ways to do this, but I decided to use original audio recordings of my voice before gender transition. And a few of them, I had them from another project, and also I've been trying to archive in myself the gender transition process. So I decided to use two audio recordings. One is a fragment that I'm reading from the book Americana, which was a very important reading for me before the Trump era back in 2016, 17. That helped me understand my place in the world as an immigrant in the US. And the other one is a fragment of a collaborative writing that I was doing with a lover by that time, in which I talk about being an exile and mostly an exile in my own body. And I started using the pronouns. And the Spanish by that time didn't help me, achieve the neutrality that I wanted for my life. Because as you know, Spanish is very, like male and female pronouns. We don't have very much neutrality in the middle. So then if we
that's
move...
so interesting. It sort of relates to what we'll see later with the prompts, how it's like these language models are really sort of designed in like an Anglo-centric way, that they mostly require you to write in English, and the way you were playing with trying to express these things in Spanish to the AI. Mm-hmm. But should we move on to the Luca model? Okay.
Yeah.
So as we approach Luca, the same effect happens with the point cloud. He's seated with his hands on his knees. Let's go look up at his face. You can see he has a little bit of beard going, and his hair is long and curly, going down over his shoulders. Looks to be wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I can even see the outline of his phone in his pocket.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a version of myself that I go through the 3D scanning process. I got a mesh that I had to clean up, and then I transformed this mesh via Mesh Lab into a point cloud. I discarded the textures and I just added color via Mesh Lab, and then I created a GLB file to be able to upload this into New York City's platform. All this process sounds simple, but actually it wasn't. It took me many weeks to figure out how to import, because point cloud files are technically PLY and they won't work for New York City. So transforming that to a GLB was a little bit of a challenge, but fortunately, I made it happen.
It looks easy in the space, but this is actually the first time that this has ever been done in New Art City that I'm aware of.
And then how is Luca responding to Lisette? To do that, I decided to write a fragment of a book. Oh, sorry, I think something is chopping off. About queer theory, you know, and I'm not sure if we can listen to the audio.
We can if you want to. I was just turning it down so you could speak.
Yeah, I think it would be nice if we can listen.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear only the heartbeat. But I believe if people are within the space, they can hear it by themselves.
Las hadas bailan y cantan para los maricas. Y a veces los maricas bailamos y cantamos para las hadas. Y a veces, en las mejores ocasiones, bailamos y cantamos todas juntas. Las hadas son amigas de los maricas. Se ayudan entre sí siempre que pueden. Las hadas no viven entre los hombres. Viven en árboles, cuevas y arbustos. Salen de noche para bailar y cantar. Los hombres saben que las hadas existen, pero no están seguros de haber visto alguna. Solo los maricas estamos seguros de haberlas visto. A veces las hadas bailan y cantan para los maricas, y a veces los maricas bailamos y cantamos para las hadas. Y a veces, en las mejores ocasiones, bailamos y cantamos todas juntas. Las hadas son amigas de los maricas. Se ayudan entre sí.
It's a fragment of a Spanish translation of Larry Mitchell's book, The Faggots and Their Friends Between Revolutions.
So beautiful.
Thank you. So yeah, I think maybe we are ready to move to the second world.
I also wanted to note in the visual description that behind each of the point cloud bodies' heads are looping videos. And so behind Lisette is a video of a mountain scene with clouds quickly moving over it. And over the course of about 30 seconds, the sun rises and starts to shine through the clouds, casting orange onto the mountain. And above Luca's head is a top-down video of a city street that I think is a 3D render. The cars are moving. It seems to be at like rush hour, and the cars are moving through it at a suspiciously even pace.
Yeah, that's New York City, and Lisette's background video is Los Andes Cordillera.
So now we're going to move to the next space, queer AI. And that's spelled C-U-I-R, and I think Luca has some really interesting things to say about this.
Yeah, so we're moving to the second space in the Metamorphis world, which is queer AI. Queer AI, oh, give me just 1 second. I think I should read Sami first, maybe the description.
Perfect, yes.
Yeah. Okay, summer of 2022. Now, this is happening this year. Luca starts using AI technology for the first time. AI image generators such as Journey, Dreamlike, and Stable Diffusion, among others, are gaining wider attention and are being used by artists worldwide. Luca starts generating images using these tools, but encounters an obstacle. Current AIs aren't trained to understand Spanish, his primary language. Forced to use English, he finds himself frustrated by the images he gets due to his less than perfect prompts. Still optimistic about a future in which AI technologies become more inclusive, he starts archiving the images he's generating without curation to build a queer museum of AI representation. His common prompts include English words such as immigrant, queer, and Latinx, mixed with Spanish idioms such as queer, marica, and sudaca, among others. So here we are in the present time, 2022, in which I started exploring me, the real Luca, beyond the character. I started exploring artificial intelligence image generators. The focus of my artistic exploration with these tools has been queer culture, Latinx identity, and immigrant aesthetics and stereotypes. The three most important aspects of my identity politics, but with a tweak, using Spanish or Spanglish predominantly and English only occasionally to see the results I will get from these AIs. So this is Queer AI, a queer with C, honoring earlier processes of decolonization of the term that Latinx and Spanish speaker queer theories have made of this Anglicism many years ago. And just to be clear, I'm not inventing the queer with C here. The first element you will see is the title. And then you will look around, you will see part of a visual representation of a neural network, which is the entity that within the fantasy of the narrative is provided Luca with all the imagery you will see in a moment. Here you can fly around or press 0 to experience a free fall inside the queer museum, which will take you to the first floor like an elevator. I'm not sure if you want to do that, Sammy, for people to see, like if you press 0, what happens?
Before we go further, I'm actually inside of one of the neurons of the neural network, and it's sort of semi-transparent. Some of the polygons are white and some of them are empty, and you can see the wireframe of all of these little edges making up the spheres, and they're connected by these tendrils, and they're all quite large. And as you look down, you can see the balloon letters of Queer AI, and below that is a super colorful building that's tiled with what seems to be images of mostly faces. And so we're going to go down, fly down there, and then I will initiate the free fall to go into the center of the museum. And so we've landed on the base. In front of and so inside of this AI museum is sort of a spiral central column with banisters that are thin lines, and it's all textured with these images. So it's pretty chaotic and very, very colorful. And I can see the sort of pink fog up at the top, but I can't see through it. And we materialize in front of a larger AI generated image of two femmes kissing, and it has a red background, and the left figure has dark brown hair put up in a bun, and she's wearing this really sick, like latexy, drippy kind of blue jacket. And the person that she's kissing on the right has blue tinged skin and like a blue pixie cut, and she's covered in these floral tattoos that go all the way up her neck and a little bit onto her face. And her lips look a little bit like a rose tattoo.
Thank you, Sammy. So when you get here, you will realize that you enter a 14th floor environment, totally wrapped up with AI imagery. Important to mention that there isn't any curation of the images here. And this topic was particularly problematic for me at some point because I'm not happy with all the images I got, clearly. And some of them are definitely ugly or perpetuate the stereotypes of immigrant, Latino, and queer communities. I'm very picky with aesthetics, so I question myself, do I really want to create an environment with images that I don't like? Then I thought that particularly with this space, it was more relevant for me to capture a state of the art in terms of the use of AI technologies for a Spanish speaker, an exercise of self-archiving as a very fundamental practice of preservation. This gave preservation of the moment in time where I started exploring these tools in relation to the intersections of my identity. I particularly want a record of this intention and artistic impulse for the future, and Queer AI will be the record. So as you can see, if you get out of the building, there are other 3D elements in the space. Cell phones were kind of like a silly representation of surveillance, and the fact that I'm a believer we're constantly being watched. So of course, the museum and building is also being observed by power systems within the narrative. And you will also see balloons and lettering, which are mostly decorative elements. And other videos and images that viewers will find in the space outside the building. So important to say also that I'm not in a place right now to summarize or organize conclusions of my experiments with artificial intelligence because the process is still ongoing and expanding. But briefly, I would like to mention a few discoveries during this 2-3 months process of me interacting with these AI image generators. AIs are not trained to understand Spanish, but English, which make these tools less than inclusive for non-English speakers. And I'm surprised that I haven't seen anyone pointing this out. And I see people generally comfortable using this technology, but to be clear, it's not my case. I'm not totally comfortable using them. Particularly when writing prompts about trans and non-binary identities, many times I receive less images than expected. For the ones who are familiar with these technologies, generally you get 4 images per prompt. In my case, I got 3 images, sometimes 1 blank or 2 blanks. And by using a stable diffusion generator via Hugging Face. So what does it mean? You know, like my question at this point of my research is why I'm getting these results. This is because the databases used to train AIs are lacking queer, non-binary, and trans representation, or might be my imperfect English, or the use of both Spanish and Spanglish word that makes AIs confused. I don't know. I don't have an answer yet, and I'm super excited to continue exploring this. Also important to mention that I'm not a scholar of AI technology, and by the moment, I'm not planning on publishing anything, you know, in relation to my research, maybe in the future. But for anyone interested in expanding their knowledge about AI tools for identity politics, I would recommend the work of the artist Ari Melenciano and Dr. Nitris Gaskin. If you can share the link, maybe you already did, Sami.
Yes, I'm going to pop those in the chat now.
And yeah, I think I'm ready to move to the third space.
Excellent. So we materialize in a foggy space, and we are inside of a canoe that is really nicely textured. And it moves with us, and we're sitting on rippling, reflective water. If I look to my left, I see a big tree with these super, like, enormous flat leaves, a super wide trunk, and exposed roots. And to the left of that is a banyan tree, and we see some enormous figures off in the distance that are waist deep in the water, and they each have sort of cone-shaped masks on. One is more of a perfect cone, and the other is flattened on the top and a little bit wider around the base. You want to read the text, Luca?
Yeah. 2051. In a world where AI technologies become widely accessible to humans and sentient AIs hold a higher status in society, 70-year-old Luca finds himself looking for new meaning. He said, the AI he finished creating back in 2026 became sentient and has fully emancipated from him. Having dedicated his life to AI research and expanded reality without the spiritual fulfillment, he attempted to reconnect with his roots in his home country, Chile, finding meaning in quasi-extinct Sagnan tribal cosmovision and its ancestral rituals. Ready to return from the digital world, he begins finalizing his last piece, a VR simulation of the Chilean Patagonia that preserved the history and geography of the area before climate change degradation. He navigates these waters virtually to find vestige of the tribe he feels spiritually connected to. You are about to enter Hain, the first prototype of this simulation. So Hain is situated in 2051, where a 70-year-old Luca returns from the digital world to reconnect with his roots in his home country, Chile. It's important for me to clarify at this point that both Luca, the character, and myself are not indigenous, and I haven't made contact with the Senam tribe members to create this digital space, which is something that I'm planning on doing in person in the near future. Ideally, spend a month or so in the area to learn more about the culture on site. And with that being said, this space has been digitally activated for this residency, but in any case, finalized. So as soon as you enter the space, you will find yourself inside a canyon, which is a 3D element that will help you navigate the space. And it was a very important also element within the Salem tribe. And this canyon will help you navigate the space as soon as you start moving with it. You will start, well, you are free to move within the space whatever you want, but if you, Sami, can start moving to the first zone.
So we're navigating towards this enormous figure, and you can see some clouds off in the distance. And he's really, really tall. I feel like scale is weird in virtual space, but he feels like 50 feet tall. And the texture of his body is very sort of wood-like, and the body is a dark reddish color lit by a spotlight in the center. He's wearing a cone-shaped mask, and his hands are over his ears, and there are thick bands of paint over his bicep and his wrist, and another over his face and over the top of the cone of his mask.
Yes. So you start moving to this Selknam mobile, which is a figure of Selknam male representing the deity Matan in a Hain ritual. You will enter the mobile and you will find pictures taken by anthropologist Anne Chapman and ethnologist Martin Gusinde of a Hain ritual performed in 1923. If you are interested in learning more about this ritual, please check Anne Chapman's research. Her books are available online for download. And also, well, yeah, this is important. Sami, if you can
Yeah, I'm gonna
display
put that in the
this.
chat right now.
Yeah.
Oh, we're back. And as you get closer to the model, two photographs of the actual person in this costume they appear. And so on the left, you can see he's in a very similar pose to the model that I described. And the strip of paint around his waist is divided by a line that runs up through the mask itself. So there's sort of like a cylinder carved out of the front of this cone-shaped mask. And that mask has a big white strip of paint sort of indicating a mouth and two large vertical strips of paint that sort of look like eyes.
Yes. And you will enter this mobile and then you will find more pictures of a 1923 Hain ritual taken both by Anne Chapman and Martin Gusinde. And you will also find an audio recording of me explaining the Hain ritual and why it makes sense.
So we
For the
see a line
to
of
connect
something
with
like 10 boys with a bunch of vertical strips of white body paint across their whole bodies, probably divided into 10 or 12 lines vertically. And they are standing in a line with arms draped over each other's shoulders. And there's a dog in the foreground, I think. Is that a dog?
It is. Yes, and yeah, I think people are more than welcome to listen to the audio if they want to, but this is basically kind of like a little bigger, I think, to navigate. So if you want to start moving to other areas.
Yeah, remembering where zone 3 is.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably like under the tree. Passed briefly, but mostly going to the fourth zone by the end.
So are we going to go to the figure way off on the distance, or are we going to go under the tree?
I think that one out of the distance.
Okay, we are going.
Also important to talk about the sound design. I work with freely available resources from the internet to create a rainforest environment, including a rowing sound, water, birds, and cicada singing. My intention with this environment, now that it is activated, is to record original sounds from the Patagonia and spend some time there to also 3D scan some trees and both flora and fauna there to include in this environment from the future.
So as we approach this figure, it's about chest deep in the water, and it has thin. It's the same sort of texture as the other one, very like woody and red, and it's painted in thin white lines, three or no four, yeah, dividing the chest and neck into four lines with a vertical strip down the center. And there are four vertical lines on the cone-shaped mask, which is sort of blunted at the top.
Yes. So we're gonna enter this model and we will find another picture, which is important for the narrative. The Selknam people, they were almost exterminated by European colonizers, and many of them were also taken out of the area to zoos in Europe to be displayed as animals. So with this space, it's mostly a space for remembrance for me and for the viewers. Right now, it just also has only one audio, which is a poem by Chilean artist and poet Cecilia Vicuña, which talks about the Selknam extermination, quasi-extermination, because recently this year, some of the tribe members are reclaiming identity and being recognized because they are not fully exterminated, which is a very important milestone within the Chilean country, and important also because we are rewriting the constitution. So now they're going to have legal recognition. This is just happening very recently in the summer.
And rewriting
Yeah,
history.
I think
There's
people are
such
also
a
welcome to.
sorry.
No, yeah, please continue.
Oh, I mean, I think there's such a paradigm in the way that sort of Western historians approach these sorts of things, that there's a desire to render like indigenous experience as like past, and this was even done in the present of that photograph, that it's like this is a quote like ancient culture, and it's like no, it's like these people actually do still exist. And it's like there's a lot of similar discourse around this with indigenous people in Mexico. And to describe the image, which is honestly gut-wrenching to look at, there is a mother and husband and daughter and child sitting on the deck of a boat, and they are barefoot, and sort of entering the frame on the right is a white man in some sort of maritime uniform, and he has a chin beard. And Lucas left an offering on a rock in front of the photograph of a bouquet of flowers.
Yes. I wonder if people have any questions at this point, or if you want to stop sharing the screen.
I would love to hear a little bit more before we leave this space about like your association with the Hein ritual, which has to do with sort of the coming of age and transitioning from like a boy to a man, because I think it really
Exactly.
sort of ties up the rest of the piece.
Yeah, my association is related to transition. The Hein ritual was particularly focused on adult males welcoming younger males to, let's say, manhood, or adultness, and that's the way the character relates to the ritual, as being like in this sort of like flow of life and transitioning from one state to another.
Yeah, and like within the same life.
Yeah.
Thank you, Luca. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And yes, we'd love to open it up if there are any questions, anything you'd like to hear more about. Don't everybody speak at once. Well, maybe we did do that good of a job.
Hi, my name's Wade. I'm
Hi, Wade.
nice to meet you, Luca. I just wanted to say congratulations. This is a beautiful project, and it was really cool to see the way that you were able to implement these new tools. I thought, and specifically, I really like the way that you created an embodied experience with the canoe in the water scene. I thought that was really special and different, and gave me as a viewer a feeling of like rootedness that you sometimes don't get in virtual spaces like this. And I haven't seen many folks, employ something like that in Art City. So a beautiful job.
Thank you, Wade. Also, thank you for the water, which is 3JS.
It's a new Art City favorite. Yes, that is the first implementation of canoe mode, thanks to Donna and Martin.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome.
Okay, well, I've already dropped these in the pre-show email, but I want to make sure that everybody has links to the exhibition catalog. So this, I'm going in reverse order. This is the one that we were just in. This is Hein, and then I'll add Queer AI. And Metamorphis. And after this event, we will take the video that we just recorded and install it in each of the spaces. Have I already said that? So if you want to come back and see the tour another time or share it with anybody, you can do that here.
Great.
So if we don't have any other questions or comments, I think that brings us to the end of our program.
Actually, I wanted to.
Oh, Martin, yeah.
Hey, hi, Luca.
Hi, Martin.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Martin here. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate the piece that you made. I've always, so I'm from Zambia, and I have met a lot of like South American artists, and one of the things that we always relate to is that idea of decolonization in a lot of different ways. I feel like one thing that I gravitated to, especially with this art piece, is even though I identify as like a straight, like cisgender male. I have also like moving to America and trying to figure out my relationship with like the masculinity I was offered as a child, and the one that I want to deal with now is something that I've been always trying to explore since I moved here, and I still like conversation I keep having with myself in the spaces that I exist in. And it's always nice to see how other people are dealing with that, especially from a perspective of where you have your culture that you appreciate in so many respects, but you also understand how many ways that it has either like, for lack of a better word, like the ways that it's messed you up. And trying to like identify what you can like pick out and appreciate about it, and what should be taken out of it, what should be explored, and all of that is always just I always find that a fascinating topic to talk about. So thank you. This is an amazing art piece for that respect.
Thank you, Martin.
No problem.
Thank you, Martin.